This is a piece by a guy named Larry Taunton.
Larry who? Never heard of her.
What sort of a man is he?
Pick from Bama.
A man like any other, but more so.
Well, I thought he was dead.
This is the Larry Alex Taunton Show. Let's light this candle.
Welcome into the Larry Alex Taunton Show. I am Amie Beth Shaver here with your man in the field, Larry Taunton. Every time something happens pre-show.
Yes, we were discussing my dog breaking wind. This was the lead in to the show. It is not a topic of discussion
At all,
but it was the lead in to the show. So once again, we're giggling like juveniles. But anyway, I'm great. How are you? I love the pink jacket.
Thank you.
I think it's pink.
You know what? It is, and I can't even fool you because we pulled the whole "it's orange," last time, and it wasn't even orange. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yep.
It's my thrift store jacket.
And like a Def Leppard shirt or something.
Listen, it spoke to me. Yeah, child of the 80s. I said, this has to happen. Chris saw it and he was like, you are buying that shirt, right? I'm like, yes. An homage. That would be great if we did a photo shoot and we did it in homage to the 80s.
That would be interesting.
That would be fabulous, Larry. We need to do that.
That would be good. We could do a photograph.
It really could. Oh.
It's Def Leppard. It's just a little reference to Def Leppard.
You know what? If you grew up in the 80s, you appreciate this very much. Go. And you are with us and you're shaking your head. And you may even go right this moment and find your favorite 80s tune.
Yep.
So you did a Latimer House luncheon.
Yeah, I did yesterday. Latimer House luncheons, those who are familiar with Fixed Point Foundation may be familiar with this, even if they don't know they're familiar with it. Meaning, if you've listened or watched a lot of our content, sometimes it's in the setting of a Latimer House luncheon. Right. And we've had some very interesting guests over the years. Christopher Hitchens has been a Latimer House luncheon speaker. Richard Dawkins we've had for a Latimer House luncheon event. Professor John Lennox. Ian Hutchinson, the scientist, Hugh Ross, the astrophysicist. Oh, wow. We've had a variety of judges, politicians, you name it, and so we've reinstituted them. We brought them back just a couple of months ago, and yesterday I was speaking on the question: is socialism Christian? And that may be something that we end up discussing on the show. The answer, by the way, the Cliff Notes is no.
I saw your tweet about that, and I was like, well, there you go.
There you go.
That's the ultimate Cliff Notes
There you
version.
go. I got up and I said, today's lecture is socialism Christian? No. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions?
Well done.
Yeah.
I wish I would have been able to be there and listen to it. So what were some of the questions that you got about that at the end? Because I know you do Q&As.
Yeah. The most common misconception on that issue is, for instance, somebody, and I was waiting for this, but somebody goes to, I think it's Acts chapter 2, verses 44 and 45, and then Acts chapter 4, where it says they shared things in common. And so people say, hey, that's socialism. So they think that socialism is just sharing things. It's an equal distribution of wealth. That's not socialism. And what you see in Acts, as distinct from actual socialism, is socialism is defined by, the means of production are owned by the state and are supposedly, it never happens this way, redistributed, more equitably.
Right.
But what you're seeing in Acts is not government seizure of wealth. It is people choosing to give. So there's
it's volitional.
Exactly. So socialism is government seizure, redistribution as they choose, often for very godless purposes. Whereas in the Christian model, it's volitional. We choose to give, and we should never divorce that from the gospel. So For instance, the state can take your money and fund Planned Parenthood, or give billions to Ukraine, or decide to bring in a topic for today, millions of immigrants illegally into this country. Whereas when you're giving, you're deciding where it's going,
Yes.
and hopefully you're moved to give for a Christian reason and for to bring honor and glory to God. So it's always coupled, with the gospel, and people don't seem to understand that.
Have there been any just completely out of left fields that you've gotten on that topic at events like that you're like, okay, no? I mean, people trying to trip you up when they're asking questions about Christianity and socialism. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
that foil that's always in the audience?
Yeah, I guess we haven't had that. I'm trying to think about that for Latimer House luncheons. I can't recall anyone. It's generally a pretty
They're pretty
crowd.
awesome people.
Yeah, it's
that are
generally a
coming.
home crowd for the Latimer House luncheons. But I have definitely had that speaking on university campus. I was speaking at a church some years ago when a professor from, and I'll name the university, Samford University, a
Our
professor,
school.
presumably a Christian, comes, and during the Q&A he stands up and decides to challenge me, because he says that my writing, my book, this was the book I was speaking on, The Grace Effect, it only deals with highbrow, Christians. And I said, clearly you've not read the book, because the book is about an orphan. But it was odd, because he was trying to say that we were elitists. And of course, we're really anything but elitists. And in fact, we're anti-elitist, which is why we don't like the World Economic Forum, which will be a discussion later. But anyway, yeah, I've certainly had those people try to ambush you. Mm-hmm. I've had that a number of times. So you kind of go into it kind of halfway, expecting that somebody's going to come after you. So all the more reason to make sure you're pretty well armed.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I know.
That's why I'm teeing you up next time.
Ready to go.
She's going to be our speaker for the next Latimer House luncheon. And I'm actually setting you up because it's a very hostile audience. They're all going to be coming for your head.
Terrible. They're going to have questions you can't answer.
No, that's very
You're
sweet,
gonna
Amie
leave
Beth.
crying.
Oh, gosh, I didn't see this coming.
Listen, I know. I was actually in the parking lot of my favorite shopping destination, Target, and somebody had just been to a Latimer House luncheon, or they were going, and it happened to be my high school. His wife was my English teacher, and he was my drama coach and debate teacher. And they were so excited because they're huge fans. They love your work. They were headed to the next one. So I have to reach out to them and say,
well, very
hey,
good. And
sir, y'all want to come to this one?
tell them we appreciate their interest in our elitist ministry.
Absolutely. I love being a part of that. I mean, because, the funny thing is when people stand up and do things like that, because that happened to me when I was speaking in high schools, but mine was very many years ago. But there are always those people, though, that do like to stand up, that do like to challenge you. I had a teacher stand up in the middle of my talk when I was talking about character education of all things. I'm like, this is ironic. And you have to go toe-to-toe with them.
Yeah.
But they're trying to get theirs. And you're like, okay, if this makes you feel good for like 30 seconds, okay. But think about what you're doing. You're saying you're an elitist and you're actually teaching at a school. Do you know how much tuition costs?
Yeah.
Like, how much are you paid? So it's very ironic. But those sorts of things don't happen at Latimer House because these people are amazing.
No, it'll be a home crowd. I'm pretty sure, but I think that what you expect are people who are really they're leaning in. They're ready to be equipped. They're ready to be armed, and so I think that's a very important aspect of this. But when you're taking those kind of questions, usually what you discover is at bottom, they're just making a statement. And the person I saw who I thought did the very best at this is when I was an undergraduate at Samford University. Robert Bork had been nominated for the Supreme Court, and he was speaking on campus, and there were all these people who came to ambush him. And they set up mics, on either side and then in the center. And it was hilarious how he just dismissed one after the other. And he did it with such a sense of humor. He did it graciously, like he he didn't humiliate any of them. Let's just put it this way. The humiliation they may have felt, they brought on themselves. It wasn't because of something he said to them. And he just dismissed one right after the other. And I thought, wow, he did that so easily. And I thought, this guy has, incredible intellectual horsepower. And man, I wish he'd have been put on the Supreme Court, but that's another issue.
Well, I guess we can save it. All right, listen, don't go anywhere. We have several great things we're talking about today. Number one, Mike Lindell and the raids. What is that? Helping people? Are we helping them? Are we enabling them? I don't know. And a few more things. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
ABS, Automatic Braking System, also known as Amie Beth Shaver, pumps the brakes.
Welcome back, Larry.
Yes. Well, it is now time for the ABS, Automatic Braking System, Amie Beth Shaver Moment of the Week. And I'm actually kind of giddy looking forward to this one because you've kept your notes carefully away from me so that I don't see what it's about. So the floor is yours.
We have fessed something up together. Maybe not on the show, but
all the good stuff is not on the show.
It's true. And so now I'm going to let everybody in. Impatient drivers.
I'm one.
Okay. I'm one.
Yeah.
And I'm telling on myself, and this one really Shazammed me. It was like the Lord was like, I see you, impatient driver. So if there's a backup on the road, I'm the first one. And even Chris is like, sweetie, you've like really become impatient. I'm like, I know. But this time I'm on the parkway headed to my house. I'm very happy to go home after the end of a long day. And there's a backup. And I'm like, what's the problem? Like, what is going on today? Like, I need to get home. I have things to do. I'm a mom. And all of a sudden, you see it's not the Canadian geese, which are the usual reason for the backup. Oh, no. Oh, no. They were little tiny deer that were so small, I thought they were puppies going across the road. That small. And the mom, as I see at the last second, is waiting off in the brambles. Like she's literally waiting for them to cross the road. And that's why it's all stopped. And I thought, now, isn't this sweet? If I had been in a hurry and I hadn't been behind somebody, I may have hit the baby Bambis, but I didn't. So I'm telling on myself and I'm seeing that if I just slow down and appreciate things, and stop being triggered by people not getting where they need to be, I may be a better person. I don't know. I have a lead foot. I drive too fast. I'm generally in a hurry. There's a song by Andy Mineo called Coming In Hot. This is my theme song. But I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson this week that I need to slow down and pay attention to what's around me.
Just so you know who you're talking to here. Do you know how I'm hearing this?
As a hunter, I know how you're hearing this. You're thinking bow, gun, how I'm going to take the mom out. I have a deer in my backyard right now. Her name is Daly because she comes to my house every day. We're friends, not really. But I knew exactly how you were going to take this.
I am thinking, conservation.
No, I know.
So don't want you to hit those because we do need them to grow to adults so that they can be hunted. But we are hunting. Deer season is just around the corner.
2 weeks away, right?
Yes. It's in fact, yesterday I was in a hunting store and a guy told me they were completely out of 30-06 rounds because somebody had just come in and bought all that they had. But yeah, I'm with you. Excuse me, I am an impatient driver myself. And, we got somebody over here affirming
Matt
that this is true. If by some chance we're wrong about the Christian faith, then Hinduism must be the truth, because that would mean that in my previous life, I was like an IndyCar driver, or something like that. Because, my dream gift is to do, hint, hint.
The Barber Motorsports?
Yeah, one of those things, yes. I would love to get in a car and just go flat out and just have so much fun doing that. I would love to do that. If somebody knew Darrell Waltrip, maybe I could do the Darrell Waltrip, driving experience. Maybe I could go to Talladega, do it there. But hey, I'm open to Barber Motorsports. I'm open. If anybody out there would like to see us do a show,
we would do that.
Do a show from
Larry. That would be so fun. If we could do it at Talladega, we could do like Ricky Bobby. Yeah. We could have a Talladega Nights, like wear the suit and all the things.
You could be in the passenger seat.
No, I'm driving. My husband would say, "Oh no, please give my wife her own car," because I too believe that I was an IndyCar driver in a previous life.
Let's do it. He can follow along in the Z71.
He can, and he'd be happy right there, because the kids have a saying, and this is honest to God, and this might actually get me tweeting. If we're on a trip or we're heading somewhere, for example, when they were younger, we would take mega trips down to the Keys, Anna Maria, and I'd make them drive. And I'm like, we're not flying, we're driving, because we're going to have a family road trip, and you're going to like it. But as we're walking out to the car early in the morning, they would look at me and they're like, "You're driving, right? Because we want to get there." And I was like, yes. So,
Sounds like a buddy of mine in graduate school. He always says, anytime we go anywhere, Larry drives.
Yeah.
Larry does the driving.
You want me to drive.
So, yes.
Like, I'm safe. I know how to get around it.
I want you on that wall. You need me on that wall.
Yes.
You want me in that driver's seat. You need me in that driver's seat.
You need me in that driver's seat.
Well, I'm glad you didn't kill the deer.
I didn't.
So they can be killed later. And somebody can have venison burgers. You ever had venison burgers?
No, I'm not going to have venison burger. I'm not going to have buffalo. I'm not going to have any of those. Now, my son-in-law is like you. He is waiting for those little Bambis to grow and come to our backyard. I just had a young fella over at my house last night who asked if he could bring his bow. And I said, "If you touch my deer daily, you're not allowed to come back here. But you can bring some deer corn for me," because she just kind of wanders, and I let her do her thing. Our dogs are so lazy, they don't even care that she's there. Of course, it's
probably don't want to mess with her.
Well, they're the magical bull mastiff age where they literally don't care. And
have you ever seen that very funny viral video of the guy being attacked by a deer?
No.
I mean, it's like it's up on its hind legs.
Yes, I have seen that.
And the guy is just falling backwards, and it just keeps coming and coming. It's simultaneously terrifying and funny.
It's so funny
at the same time. But the guy, is just getting battered by this thing, and it doesn't go away. It just keeps going at him. And there must be, probably a fawn or something involved that this buck is trying to protect, but it's a funny video. Don't want that to happen.
No, we don't want that to happen.
Nope.
But for all the impatient drivers, here's to you. You don't know what's on the other side of that backup. I'm glad it was pleasant and little baby deer.
Yeah.
That you're not going to kill.
Good. I'm glad you didn't kill them.
Yeah, I didn't. I'll just save that for whoever's going to get out there with a bow and arrow.
That's a good ABS.
So there you go.
I like it.
Okay. All right. I'm glad you do. So you know what? I think that I'm going to pull my notes up here. Let's do this real quick because this is important before we get to helping people and talk about Mike Lindell and the raid. And I've heard, I could be very wrong. I hope somebody in our audience will tell us. I heard that it was at the Hardee's drive-thru where they seized his phone.
So the FBI, while he's getting a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit.
With those wonderful hash rounds.
With the wonderful hash rounds at Hardee's, the FBI raids Mike Lindell. By the way, if you go to MyPillow, use code FBI for a
that was good.
For a discount.
4 cups of coffee.
For a discount, today. You can use code Larry and Amie Beth. It'll get you nothing because we must be the only Christian. What do we call ourselves? Influencers, commentators who aren't supported by Mike Lindell.
That's true. That kind of hurts my feelings a little bit.
I actually saw Mike at Mar-a-Lago, and I thought it might be just a little crass if I came up to him and said, "Hey, Mike, can I get my own code?"
Yeah.
So that people can order pillows. But I see everybody out there doing it. Metaxas does it. Dinesh D'Souza does it. You name it. Everybody does it. And I have to think that the conservatives are pretty well pillowed up by now.
I would say so.
So I would think, that I would be a little too late to that party, for us to get our own funding from Mike Lindell. But it is interesting, to be serious, that the FBI would be seizing Mike Lindell's phone. And the way I see this, and I'm curious as to the way you're reading it, but it looks like, I mean, certainly the FBI has been radicalized, and they have become a political weapon to intimidate and to attempt to destroy the reputations of conservatives. But this one, I keep saying that they've gone too far, every time, because they just keep going and going. But Mike Lindell, I mean, do they fear Mike Lindell that much? Do they think his funding of conservatives is such that they need to do this? I just find it bizarre that the FBI is this rogue, is this out of control. I'm waiting for them to swing through there are actual windows behind these curtains, swing through, rappelling, with their machine guns that they're ready, and arrest us, seize our phones, our laptops, only to discover that we are fans of John Wayne.
It's true. It is terrifying. I know you're going to do a column on this in the future. It feels very fascist.
Yeah.
That they're listening, they're watching. Anybody who has said anything about January 6th seems to be their target right now. I know, on another hand, that an Alabama group, because we are in the American South, has received a subpoena for something else that they did. But it's anything that comes against this progressive, far left, very fascist agenda.
But they're so tolerant.
But they're so nice.
Yeah, the compassion of the left. Somebody tweeted me yesterday.
They love us so much.
Yeah, somebody tweeted me yesterday that the real compassion always comes from the left. And it was all I could do not to vomit, right there, because I'm thinking, look at the hate that's being promoted in America from the left, and all the wicked things that are being done by the left in this country, from the sexualization of children to the introduction of Marxism into various aspects to society. The utter godlessness that's driving it is odd, and they will not allow differences of opinion. All the more reason why we have to make sure that we continue to speak out and we continue to promote the truth. So I think this is very important. And also, on a serious note, we should pray for Mike Lindell, because guys like this, so many conservatives are being targeted. My friend Dinesh D'Souza, with the
absolutely
with the Obama administration, early in the Obama administration, they targeted him, had a judge try to declare him legally insane, put him under house arrest, this type of stuff. So I've seen this before. And I'm at the place where no matter what evidence they say they have, Mike Lindell's a child trafficker. I don't believe anything you people tell me. You're liars. You are liars. You will manufacture evidence. You will manufacture reasons to persecute. And this is what this comes down to. This is persecution of conservatives, persecution of Christians. Mike Lindell is an evangelical. He's a fervent evangelical. His story is amazing. What the guy came out of, and where he is, and he's obviously a man of courage. So let's pray for Mike.
Absolutely. And I think you said something very important, and that is, right now when we see people that are taking the arrows, is to, I know this is going to be ridiculous, but there's a kid show out right now, Cobra Kai, based on the Karate Kid movies. Okay.
Okay. Because did you say a kids show?
Well, I mean, it's a young adult show, and of course.
Well, I feel insulted because I like Cobra Kai.
I love Cobra Kai. Okay. Because some people are like, well, isn't that a kid show? And I have to tell people, yes, it's a kid show, but I love it. But it's a young adult, and we binged it.
Let's just say the first season. I feel
so much better right now.
The 80s references I thought were hysterical.
Well, I think they're through season 5. We've watched every episode.
Yeah.
But right now, the only thing I can think of is starting in, I guess, the next to the last or the last episode. One of the guys from past movies was brought in, and he's teaching the kids, and he's teaching them about eggs and what they have to do to guard the egg. And so the very last scene, you see them, and they're being attacked from this other group.
Is there a spoiler?
And it's not a spoiler. I wouldn't say this is a spoiler. I think it's a great scene. And all at once, one of the kids yells out, "Guard the egg." and they all get into formation, and they all are facing out against the onslaught that's coming to them. And I thought, that's it. It may be a Cobra Kai reference, but this is exactly what we need to do right now, and guard the egg and guard one another and stand firm and not just let them take the arrows, but also be willing to guard the egg as well and take some of our own. Because so often it seems like there's only like whatever the prominent people are, you're one of them, who will get the arrows. And then we go, well, I don't really know. And people go back underground and that were once standing tall. No. This is not for shrinking back right now.
Yeah.
This is for standing even taller because we have such a great hope, Second Thessalonians says, and that's why we're very bold.
Yeah.
And I think that's the moment right now is do not shrink back, is those who have no hope, but no, stand forward. And as Cobra Kai said, guard the egg.
I love that. You know, what we need to do on a future show, we need to remember this because the way you just described that is an analogy that I use called broken square. And I think we need to, but we need some decent graphics for that. So he doesn't have anything to do. We'll give him something to do to come up with the graphics for that. But broken square, it's a reference to a British military formation where they would get into a square with their guns aiming outward to protect the center. And we'll talk a little bit about that because it's an interesting analogy for our own cultural situation. But let's plan on doing that in the next show.
Okay, let's
broken square.
You know what? Let's take a break and then let's come back and let's talk about helping people. What does that actually look like? Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is the Larry Alex Taunton Show.
Larry is my favorite player.
Welcome back. As usual, we need a camera in between breaks, okay? So let's talk about helping people, because helping people can hurt.
Don't.
So what are your thoughts on what it looks like to help people in a good situation, in a situation that maybe doesn't resolve the way that you think it will?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
You know, I'm very eager to hear what you have to say on this, but I think that as Christians, often, and we were just talking about me losing my voice, as Christians, we're called to help people. We are. That's part of the gospel. And we're supposed to have a concern for the least of these. I would hope that if I was in trouble that you would help me. I would hope that Chris would help me. I would hope that, Matt, the producer over there, would help me. And likewise, I would hope that were you to find yourself in a situation where you needed help, that I, as a Christian, would do what I should do. The difficulty of that in the real world, and this conversation comes out of, really just talking over coffee. It's just a worthy conversation, what this looks like for Christians in real life. Because there are far too many Christians, I think, who aren't willing to do the hard work of ministry. And let's face it, ministry, it just, as we were saying on a previous show, life is messy. And when you're getting involved in the lives of other people, or they in yours, it's kind of roll up your sleeves and be prepared for the fact that not everything is as neat and as tidy as you want it to be. Now, obviously, you feel best about helping people who are grateful and where you feel like you're making progress, you're moving in the right direction. But do you ever have those people that you're trying to help and it just feels like you're pouring energy into a black hole? Do you ever experience that?
Yes. And you talk and you realize about, after 5 times of having the same conversation, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And then you begin to ask yourself the question, do they like this?
Yeah.
What is the payoff for this?
Yeah.
Or are they down so deep in their hole and in their pit of misery that they can't even see their way out?
Yeah.
And so then what do you do? But yes, absolutely. There are times when I've had to talk to Chris about a situation in years past, and he's like, you're going to just have to put a lid on it and just say, listen, I've explained to you how I feel or ideas that I think steps you could take to get out of this situation, and you choose not to. So I'm going to have to choose not to talk about it anymore.
That is, I like the way you put that, because it does seem like there are some people who just like the drama.
Yes. And there's a difference between the people who like the drama and then the people who really do. just don't know what to do. And they really do want help. And I think there's a difference. Do you think there's a difference?
Yeah, no, I do. I think that I wish that John chapter 2, verse 23 says that Jesus knew all men. He knew the hearts of men. And so it's the reason you find in Scripture these non sequiturs, where, Nicodemus says to Jesus, "Oh, you're a great teacher." And he says, "You must be born again." I think if I'd been standing next to Jesus, I would have said, Jesus, he was just telling you you're a great teacher. I think you misheard him. I mean, because, right. But he knew what was in his heart. He knew that this was kind of an insincere statement, not because he didn't believe it, because that wasn't the reason he was there. He was there to search out the answer to the question, am I saved? Will I be saved? And Jesus answers the question of his heart while ignoring the words coming from his mouth. And it's the same with the woman at the well. It's the same at a variety of occasions where Jesus is responsible. Take Mary, for where she says, we're out of wine. And he says, woman, what does this have to do with me? My time has not yet come. And again, if I'm sitting next to him, I say, look, your mom was just telling you we're out of beverages.
Right.
She didn't say anything about your time, but he knew the intention of her heart. She's saying, when are you going to step to the plate and reveal what the two of us both know is true about you?
Yes.
When are you going to do that? So Jesus' answer to the question is effectively, wine I can give you, but I'm not revealing my identity here and in this time. That is not for you to decide. So he turns water into wine, but he does it privately, if you remember in that story at the wedding of Cana in John chapter 2. So, I wish, that we had that ability, because then you would know where you're wasting time and where you're not, who is sincerely seeking help, what is it that they really want, and that we can help them. But again, I always say to myself, when I have someone who is seeking my help, and we did quite recently, I always put myself in the place of that person, because I think, would I help me? Would I? Yeah. I don't want to be that guy who turns someone aside who genuinely needs help, but I rejected it. And Scripture tells us that we entertain angels unaware. And I don't want to find myself getting to heaven and saying, you know what? I sent that guy that you just thought was a guy was an angel. It's just a real test of your faith, of your commitment to the things that you say you believe. And guess what? You rejected him. You didn't give him anything. But I think we have to warn people to expect that at times you will be taken advantage of. Have you ever been taken advantage of in trying to help someone?
I feel like I have. And it's not it's more of taken advantage of time. Of good graces taken advantage of. And then you have to realize, wow, I'm going to look like a real jerk here. But when you set boundaries, that's always...
Which are important.
Which are important. If you're dealing with those people and your intention is to help, then part of that help is to put up boundaries and to see how they respond. Because some people will bump up against the boundaries, and then they'll try to find a way through the gate that's broken in the back. And then others will respect it. And those are the ones that I feel like you can deal with a little bit better, because they're like, okay, I see it. I respect it. I'm willing to work within these parameters. But I also am like you. I want to help people. I want to not be turned away. Also, I'd like to see an angel unaware, which I know will never be aware, but the idea of that, I have that in my kitchen over my window, is that serving strangers, because who knows if you've attended somebody that's an angel. I don't know. I think it's very important. But boundaries, I think there's two other things. Number one is wisdom and being wise. And when the Holy Spirit is nudging you, A, to help, listen. But B, if you're not supposed to help, equally listen. Yeah.
I think that's very important. I think having your spouse involved, whether it is in your case, Chris, your husband, or me with my wife, Lori, because sometimes they bring additional wisdom to it and a perspective that you don't always see. Sometimes one or the other of you might be, somebody might be taking advantage of you, and that other person can see more clearly what you what you do not. And sometimes you're helping that person, but establishing boundaries as to what that's going to look like and how that all plays out. But, I'm mindful of a scene from Les Mis, both the novel and in most of the films. I think I've seen several because I love that story. And that is where Jean Valjean has been released from prison, and he can't get a job. People are, pelt him when they see him coming because he has to carry, the convict's, letter stating who he is, and so he's kind of branded, as like the mark of Cain, as he goes from town to town, and as he's sleeping on a park bench, someone or the ground, somebody says to him, why are you here? Haven't you, why don't you get some help? And he says, I've tried all the doors. I've knocked on every door, and no one will help me. And they say, have you tried that door? And that, of course, is the priest where he goes to. And in that story, what is true to life is that priest, in a very Christian way, gives him a food, he gives him a bed, and Valjean steals from him. And then eventually, that priest forgives him. It's the most powerful scene in the whole book, actually. But I like the way that's portrayed, because you could look back and say, well, that priest was very foolish. And I would say to you, maybe, but I think God will honor him. Meaning, we can always establish a boundary that just says, look, we're not going to help anybody. That way, no one ever takes advantage of me. I think that real Christianity is such that you need to expect to be taken advantage of. It's going to happen. And I think it's Luke 16, where Jesus is telling the story of the shrewd manager, and he says, the sons of this world are more shrewd in their dealings with men than are the sons of light, the children of light. And we as Christians are not as devious as are the sons of this world, the children of this world. They're much more devious, and it's why we often find ourselves, on the weaker side of the cultural debate.
Right.
But I think it's where the Lord would have us be. I love what Jesus says to Nathaniel, and that's when he's under the tree, and he says, Nathaniel, in whom there is no guile. Mm-hmm. What a wonderful compliment, because Jesus is saying there's no, you're not a schemer. It's just your question is so brutally honest. He says, what good has ever come out of Nazareth?
Right. He just said it.
He just says
to the King of Glory.
He said it to the King of Glory. And I love how Jesus responds to that, which I think the Bible has humor. I can see Jesus smirking a bit there and thinking, I like this about you, Nathaniel. You just say what's in your head. There's no intrigue in you. And as Christians, we want to be that way. We don't want to be schemers. We don't want to be people who are full of intrigue. We don't want to be people who are full of guile. And that does mean that on occasion we will be taken advantage of. But I don't think that when Judgment Day comes, the Lord's going to be angry with you for that. He's going to reward you for that. So roll up your sleeves and engage with people who need help. And don't just do it. Christians are very good, I think, right out of the gate. There's a needy person we hear at our church, and we go over and we take them some food, and we drop off some clothes, and we write them a check, and boom, we're gone. And we don't see it through for the long haul. Don't you think that we're kind of good that way?
I agree with that. I think we're excellent from the jump, but then when it comes to the fourth quarter, they're like, where did y'all go?
Yeah.
What's happening here?
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent point. And I also really like your point about the honesty of Nathaniel. And that was something that I was thinking of while you were talking, is just also praying for that gift of being honest. Because I think we all suffer from a fear of, well, if I say this, then that. But being a person that is honest, that is truthful, that tells the truth with love, obviously, but love is truth and truth is love. But I love that. I love that. That's a great story of Jesus and Nathaniel. And does anything good come out? It's just so good.
I've thought that about Auburn many times.
Shazam. I know. Bless your heart.
Highway 280, the best thing that ever came out of Auburn.
It's true.
I'm just kidding, our Auburn listeners.
It's Larry Taunton at. All right, look, when we come back, we're going to talk about immigration.
Yes.
So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
This is the Larry Alex Taunton Show.
So welcome back. Are you laughing because your chair's leaning back? Can you make fun?
I just found the button where I can go, whoa, way back here like this, which will irritate Matt, the producer, because you'll hear me. It's like I'm riding off into sunset. Hello, everybody. I'm getting further away. But anyway,
that's his favorite right there.
I like that.
What you just did.
This is my spot right here. I need to put. We just need a boom mic.
Actually,
so
could we rig one up that just comes down,
I'll
and then
put
we
my
can
legs up on the
it's a true coffee table that's not 5 feet off the ground. I think we should do it. Let's have one show is irritate Matt the entire show.
I like that idea.
His head was just in his hands.
Yep. His head will explode.
I don't think he appreciates that as much as we do. So
we will have to wear shirts that are
the
coats or whatever.
Busiest shirts we have, even busier than that, stripes.
Yes, plaid.
Done.
It will go crazy
Roll
with
Tide.
the HD cameras. Hey, Roll Tide. Yes,
Roll
of
Tide.
course.
Okay, so I no to the Longhorns. Horns down.
Horns down.
And I'm not just saying that because my darling
black
girl
can really
is
be
at
seen.
West Virginia. She hadn't taught me how to do was it Horns down?
Horns down.
Horns down. And also go Mountaineers. All right, look, so immigration. This is that issue that never seems to go away because no one actually wants to deal with it.
And because immigrants aren't going away.
They're not going away.
No.
So what do we do?
Well, this has been an issue that I've been thinking on for a very long time because it feels to me like no one has been thinking on this in the right way. So that, for instance, you had a guy like David Platt, who, as I understood David Platt's position, it seemed to be, kind of flirting with an open border kind of policy that we as Christians, just need to love everybody and let everybody in. I don't think that to me doesn't make any sense because he's confusing, our position as Christians with a governmental, position. Our government isn't Christian. We don't live in a theocracy. And does David Platt just let everybody come through his front door? There is a level. We were just talking about helping people. Mm-hmm. This is actually, it wasn't by design, but this is actually a nice segue because does helping immigrants mean letting just anybody come in the country? Well, if we continue the path that we're on, America will be a third world country and we won't be able to help anybody. Mm. We won't be able to help anybody. And I just use the example of your front door because to me, that's the right analogy. You have to have a certain kind of gatekeeping policy, right? I mean, Chris Shaver, I'm sure, doesn't let just any Tom, Dick, or Harry through the front door because he has wife and children to protect. He has property to protect. And so he wants to know, who are you? What do you want? There must be some level of trust before you let that person, come into the country. Also, I think that it's important to understand that many of these immigrants don't really want to come to America, meaning they love their own countries. They want to stay. The reason I've spent so much time in South America is because I began with a series on immigration. I was writing a series for the American Spectator called The Immigration Crisis from the Other Side of the Border Crisis from the Other Side of the Border. Okay. Because I wanted people to understand we're only seeing the problem once it's across the Rio Grande. But what does it look like on that side? Who are these people? Why are they coming here? What is driving them northward? According to CNN, it was because of global warming. I mean, sheer nonsense. The reason they want you to buy into the global warming narrative is it fits the larger macro, narrative that they're pushing, that hysteria and fear over the environment, but also because the real reason has to do with something that they're actually promoting here, and that's socialism. so that, for instance, many of these immigrants are coming from Venezuela. Most of them, well, let's just say this, I think a plurality of those who are coming across our border are coming out of Venezuela, those who are coming from South America in any case. And Venezuela has been devastated by Marxist policies. Now we're going to start seeing a lot of Colombians because Colombia has been sort of on an upward trend. Still a third world country, still vast corruption, but the Colombia of today is a very different Colombia of 30 years ago. But now they've just elected, whether it was a fair election or not, I don't know, but they've just elected a Marxist. And this Marxist is very tight with Maduro in Venezuela. He's going to turn Colombia into the next Venezuela. And guess what that means? That means there will be even more immigrants. So again, part of my purpose here is that if you own, your property is being stampeded, by cattle, you'd be asking yourself, what's going on over there?
Yes.
That's causing them to come in this direction?
Right.
Is there a brush fire? Are there poachers? What's going on? And so I went to South America to see what the reasons are. And the reasons, as I say, are really socialism. It's what's driving it. So when you talk to these people, they'll tell you they want to live in their own country, but it's become untenable for them because they can't get a job. They can't feed their families. Many of them will tell you that they're living off of 1 or 2 meals a day. The average Venezuelan in the last year or so has lost 40 pounds.
Oh, my goodness.
Because of the lack of food. So what do you think those people are going to do? So I think that real compassion is the order of the day, but in helping them to remain in their own countries,
right,
rather than bringing them to the United States. And I think also a real genuine concern here is how many of the people who are entering the country are people who actually share our values. And I think the answer to that is that there are many who do.
Right.
I think most South Americans are, they're not exclusively coming from South America, but most South Americans come from a kind of a broadly Catholic, pro-family background. Many of them have a very good work ethic. They're making the journey all the way to the United States without any government assistance. I would swap, dozens of Democrats for some of these people because many of them really are remarkable people. But there are also a lot of Muslims, coming into the country. A lot of people who do not share our cultural heritage and are bent on destroying it.
Yes.
So, that's my reaction. I mean, how do you react to it when you see these pictures of tens of thousands of people crossing the Rio Grande? How do you respond to that?
It feels cruel that the situation is being used by the Democrats to say that there's no crisis at the border. Don't believe your lying eyes. It feels cruel to the people that are coming over, that they blame Republicans, are being used as pawns in their little game.
Yes.
To get voters. It seems very cruel to not treat them well. It seems very cruel not to find out if families actually belong together. As a mother of 3 girls, I see those pictures of little children coming over. We don't know if they're with their family or not. We don't know if they were just taken with their wolf to get across and this is their family, pretend family until they get separated again. I'm very concerned about the human trafficking element of it all. But the dishonesty, the level of dishonesty and deceit that Democrats are willing to go to keep these people coming across the border so that they can get their voters, they can get their pictures, AOC at the border crying in a pretend Landia as if she's going to do anything about it. And then the flip side of it is they're losing their mind when they're sent to their communities. And, as if you're going to send them to Chicago?
Yeah.
Really? Or as if you're going to send them to New York and you're going to send them to Kamala Harris's home in D.C. So there's so many elements of it, but really the word that comes to my mind is cruelty for the people that are being used, but also there's compassion.
Yeah.
Because they really do want a better life and they really are escaping. So I'd really like to ask the Democrats, when you see these people coming over and they're coming from Venezuela, Chris went on a mission trip years ago. The very next year is when Maduro was elected. And he loved it so much.
He went to Venezuela.
He went to Venezuela with the medical ministry there and worked a clinic, and they were, outside of the main city. But he said it was amazing. It was
Caracas.
Beautiful. Thank you. Couldn't remember that. And so I would like to ask the Democrats, why are these people fleeing their country? Let's talk about that, because you guys want to do the
global warming.
Yeah, of course, duh, dummy.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk to them about that.
Yeah.
Like, why are they coming across, and why are only certain people in Venezuela getting the nice things? That's because those are the people that are in power.
Yeah.
Everybody else are buying and selling on the black market.
Yeah.
So there's so many things, but I think compassion and cruelty together, and that nobody really has a heart to actually deal with it, which also bothers me, because I think Republicans need to guard the egg here too. And we need to enforce the laws that are on our books. And it's going to make people look really bad to say that for years we've let this go. We haven't done anything about it. And now suddenly we must do something about it, or we will turn into a third world country.
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree with you more, AB, because I think that we have to have a sensible immigration policy. And where I feel that Democrats and Republicans, obviously, just as you've pointed out, Democrats are very disingenuous on this. The images of AOC weeping at the border like she cares. Like she cares. She does not care.
No.
You were going to say something there?
No, I'm just her picture at the border. Like this?
Yes, yeah.
Decked out in all white?
Yes, and I love the memes, of that, which are so funny. I should have used one for Texas fans after the Texas game. Put a Texas Longhorn shirt.
There's
on
still
her.
time.
There's still time. That'd be great, Matt. Could you make that happen for me? Matt is a Texas fan. Yeah, it's so unfortunate, but. Here you have Democrats saying this. On the other hand, what the message that potential immigrants to South America are getting is that Republicans want no one.
Yes.
And I think that's the wrong message, too.
I agree.
Because, we just had last week on our show, John Rushameza, an immigrant from Rwanda. Do we want John here? Yes, we do.
Yes.
I like John a lot. John has come here. And again, he's an example of what I'm talking about, because John will tell you he's fairly typical in his outlook of many African immigrants to this country, where he says most of us are naturally conservative. We don't come here to want to live off of the government dime. We want opportunity, and we're going to grab it with both hands. Those kind of immigrants, I'm delighted to see in this country. I'm delighted to see them flourish. I'm delighted to see them have real opportunity, and they value often the Constitution and the freedoms they have here more than many, homegrown, Americans. So it isn't that we don't want any immigrants, it's that we want a sensible immigration policy. And I feel very sorry for those people who live on the border, whose homes are being really invaded. And whenever they try to protect themselves, you have the heavy hand of the federal government coming down on them saying, how dare you attempt to do this? But this brings us to a new segment in the show. And maybe we should take a break and come back to that?
I think we should.
Okay.
All right. We'll be right back.
This is the Larry Alex Taunton Show.
Well, bless your heart. So as usual, Larry has invented a great segment.
Yes, it is the Bless Your Heart segment. And actually, you invented it because...
I guess I did.
I guess, I don't know, however many shows ago it was, your ABS moment was Bless Your Heart. The way that's used, and the way it's used in the South, if you don't... Now, I've actually, Lori and I, it's very funny, since you did that segment, we catch ourselves every time we go to say it. And then we find ourselves evaluating whether it's a positive or negative use, because... In the South, if you haven't grown up in the South, the American South, you might not know this, but Southern women, and you do it beautifully.
Bless your heart.
Bless your heart. Bless your heart is a way that it can be used negatively and it can be used positively. Sometimes it's a way of just showing sympathy. I walk in the door with a broken leg and you say,
bless your heart.
Bless your heart. It's a way of showing.
Oh my goodness, are you okay?
That's right.
We follow it up.
It's a way of expressing, concern for someone. But sometimes it's a way of saying that guy is so stupid.
Well, bless your heart.
So it can be a way of just slicing someone to pieces with a smile on your face. Well, this segment, the Bless Your Heart segment, which is new, we introduced it today on the show. We will always mean it in the negative.
Always.
Always. Going forward, just if you have any doubt.
Just to be clear,
we are using it to slice someone to pieces. And today, our Bless Your Heart segment deals with, it's a nice segue. We go from immigration to...
Immigration in Martha's Vineyard.
Why don't you tell us what's happened in Martha's Vineyard?
Well, there's a delightful little soul up there, and bless his heart. He is the representative for that area for the State House in Massachusetts. And he is a Twitter that 50 immigrants have been dumped off in Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, who sent them there?
And could we just vote for him for president already? Ron DeSantis. I'm a DeSantis fan. But he sent them there, with a warm welcome and some wishes for the people of Martha's Vineyard. And they are beside themselves. I guess offering tea and crumpets to them is not enough, or as you said, the bottles of champagne that they may have lying around. Yeah. Here, would you like something to drink? The Veuve Clicquot for them. It's a great bottle of champagne, by the way.
Let's give them, some of the lesser wine stock,
Yes, I mean, this one's only $100 a bottle.
Let's give them some clam chowder.
And I'll give you my leftover Lululemon, the leggings that were $120. You may have those. And so you see today that there's for immediate release. Okay, everyone, get ready for this. Martha's Vineyard humanitarian response. We continue, and they list all the things they continue to provide, but they are grateful for their help. They want to direct all the resources, inquiries to a certain organization, but really what they're upset about is they don't think these people should be there because they don't have enough infrastructure.
Yeah. And what's so funny is, have you seen... I want to say that, and I can't remember the town, but the specific Texas town doesn't matter. But it was something like, let's say, McAllen, Texas. And it has population of McAllen, Texas. And then it says number of immigrant engagements, or something like that. Encounters, 49,000. And then it says Martha's Vineyard population, number of immigrant encounters, 50. Because Ron DeSantis, what he did was he put these immigrants on a flight, sent them to Martha's Vineyard, and it's his way of saying, because he's actually copying, what is being done. It's not Arizona who sent them. Who is it? It's Texas. That's right. It's Governor Greg Abbott from Texas who is sending them to D.C. and sending them to New York, and they're acting like they're having a complete meltdown because of this. Well, DeSantis took a page out of Governor Abbott's playbook, and he sent these 50 to Martha's Vineyard. And it has been nothing short of sheer comedy, because the response of the people in Martha's Vineyard, you have to go and watch this. Some of the videos are just
They're
hysterical.
Outstanding.
They really are, because this I've been thinking, gosh, this would make a wonderful sitcom.
Right.
It would make a wonderful comedic, movie. You could even make a rom-com out of it. Immigrant, falls in love with, hoity-toity,
It could happen.
Karen in Martha's Vineyard. And it could be so funny. But their response to this, these are leftists who are elitist to the core.
Yes.
And while listen, I don't go for the whole white privilege bit, except for with people at Martha's Vineyard.
Yes.
These people are snobs. These people are leftists to the core. They are people who have Black Lives Matter, signs all in their yard. They're people who are Biden voters, but they say, we don't want those people with skin color that's not like ours, and they're not from our demographic. They don't belong to us. They shouldn't be here. Send them back. They want them in your communities, ladies and gentlemen. That's where they want them. They want to put them in your communities. And these people do not live. Okay, I mean, they are hypocrites to the core.
Yes, they're liars, all of them.
And see, I would love to see us drop 10,000, 20,000 of them in Martha's. How many bedrooms does Barack Obama have in his 10?
Probably
I think I've been told there are 10.
10 bedrooms.
10 bedrooms.
Do you know
in
how
his
many
home in
families
Martha's.
you could fit in there?
He could fit a lot of families in his home there. Let's see Barack Obama step to the plate with all the money he has. Let's see Joe Biden do it. Let's see all these lefties do it. Because at the end of the day, I'm reminded of a line from the brothers Karamazov, where don't say it, but where I think of things like this, where Fyodor Dostoevsky says, and I'm paraphrasing, liberals, the typical liberal, loves humanity in general, not in the specific.
It's so true.
I mean, we love the idea of humanity, but when we love the idea of the poor until we actually meet one who needs our help. And then we say, you picture them with sweaters tied around their necks.
I mean, they've just come out of their morning coffee. And I would just like one of them to go up to someone leaving their, I think it's Soul Cycle class, and just ask them, I thought that y'all are listed as a sanctuary city.
Yes.
I mean, there's that. But you're right. I mean, it is calling them out, and they hate it. And their only response is...
And they're embarrassing themselves.
They're so embarrassing. So if anyone's running for office, just collect these as a montage. If it isn't turned into a sitcom or a rom-com. And,
this should be a Trump commercial.
This should be a commercial. And you
Here's
just
the
play
left.
it on a loop like we see the commercials during college football. And just play it and play it and play it and play what they're saying.
Like the guy we were talking about earlier with the deer beating him up. I want to see a video like this go viral. It'd be a great presidential, video showing here's the left putting hands and feet to their particular worldview, and their response. If Saturday Night Live weren't so leftist, they would have some clever people who would come up with some very clever skits for this, because their response has been, I mean, how do I want to put it? Their response has been more than predictable. You would have thought they would say, look, you know what they're trying to do to us here? You know what we're going to do? We're going to roll out the red carpet. We're going to take these people. Maybe we only take them into our home for, just a photo op, but we're going to give the impression that instead, they have played into conservatives' hands perfectly in this by showing who they really are. Hypocrites.
Right. It has been unbelievable. And when I saw the state representative last night whining on TV about all of the immigrants, I thought, you're a giant, big, fat liar. And if there are people on the left who do not feel this way, then somebody please stand up. Please.
Yeah.
Or start taking people into your home. But do something.
I'm starting to conceive of a show called Real Housewives of Martha's Vineyard.
Can you imagine? I'll sign up, please.
And, their reactions to this. And, remember how they responded to and I don't remember their names. And was it in St. Louis? The family that stood, the husband and wife who stood in front of their home with it's not the AK-47, with an AR-15 standing out there to defend their home, which, by the way, I think they were wise to do and right to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though they were absolutely, mocked by the left and then accused of criminal activity, because that was a Black Lives Matter, march through their community. They've been known to be extremely destructive. They knew they were there to disrupt, and it was their way of saying, you're not going to destroy our stuff. You're not going to threaten us. We're going to protect ourselves. But, in reality, conservatives, real compassion comes from conservatives inspired by a Christian worldview.
Yes. So
this is all tying together neatly, and we didn't even know it was going to when we were putting this show together, but it comes back to talking about helping people, really helping people. My wife and I have in recent weeks, endeavored to help an honest to goodness immigrant to this country. We just had John on our show, who is a refugee, to this country. And he talks about, he will tell you the many Christians, who reached out and who helped him and who helped his family. That's what it really is all about and what it looks like. But that's not what inspires. It's not what it animates a leftist worldview. At bottom, this is all talk. It's all sheer window dressing. It's for show. They don't believe any of it. It's like AOC weeping on the border. They don't care about these people, and they want them definitely out of Martha's Vineyard. And I've been trying to think of other places where we could send them. Yeah, I think we should.
Aspen. Don't you think that would be so great? Oh, and some skis too.
I think that would be awesome. I hadn't thought of Aspen. That's a great one. Vail is another. That's perfect. We could send them to Davos, in Switzerland,
Yes.
where the World Economic Forum
They could
meets.
just hold up like the welcome sign.
Yes, that would be
right?
great.
That would be fantastic. I mean, there's so many places we could send them.
Maybe we should put it across the bottom of the screen, that if people were to give,
Yes.
we will put together a caravan and start driving. We can't afford, at Fixed Point Foundation, we can't be affording like Ron DeSantis, charter jets. But we could possibly put together a few minivans.
We could.
And load some
We
of
could
these
be the
people.
drivers.
We could sort of fulfill our Dale Earnhardt, driving experience and combine it with a mission all at the same time.
We could do it. It's done.
That would be perfect. They would both go together very nicely, so we can, make a few laps around the track before we head to Vail or before we head to Aspen or a few other of these really snooty places.
Oh, yes.
And drop off some immigrants. But unlike those people, we would make sure they have a few bucks. We would make sure that they have, maybe is it called Lululemon?
It's called Lululemon. You need a lot of bucks for that store.
I don't have any Lululemon, but I probably have some stuff from Walmart or from TJ Maxx or something that we could give them some money, maybe some Chick-fil-A gift cards.
Right.
But then send them in the right direction and say, look, this is where all the lefties live who wanted to bring you to this country, who have promised you a land flowing with milk and honey, and they'll take care of you. They'll take care of you. Just go right over there. Just go right over there.
Knock on the door and say, I'm here.
I'm here. Here I am.
Is dinner ready?
That would be great.
I think it should happen.
Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis may have just started a grassroots movement of minivans taking immigrants to leftist paradises.
You know what? If we see a minivan on the news, we know they heard you say that.
Yes, we'll have to be looking for that.
I think it's absolutely got to happen.
I think that would be awesome.
Okay. Well, you know what? Then everybody has to stay tuned to see if it happens. Okay. So 2 things before we wrap up today. And that is, number one, you touched on it, but we're going to do 2 things in the coming weeks. One is we really are going to do a deep dive. And if you saw your stack of books, it's actually kind of a Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Yes.
About the Great Reset.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about that.
Yep. The World Economic Forum. We keep teasing this on the show because I'm not quite sure when I'm going to be ready. And one of the real problems in media these days is, people really not doing their research, and they're saying a lot of things that just simply aren't true because they don't bother doing the research. Have you seen anything about, I don't know how to say her name, Taylor, is it Lorenz?
Lorenz.
That's
yes.
how you say her name. Wow. What a whack job this woman is. And there's a woman whose name suddenly goes out of my head that she's tried to ruin. And I decided to retweet this woman. I don't like bullies on there. And I wish I had a bigger platform than I do, but I try to help and like where I can. And this woman immediately followed me. And I was thinking I'd love to get her on this show for her to tell her story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because she was a woman, had a business working with influencers, and this woman from the Washington Post, Taylor Lorenz, sought to destroy her. How awful. And so much of the stuff that she was saying was just simply false. Did you see any of this? It's absolutely astonishing. I think the woman's name is Abby. But anyway, I'll see if I can get her to join
fantastic.
us. It would, because I think she has quite a story to tell, and she doesn't have a huge platform. So her trying to tell her story on social media, she's not getting the retweets she needs to really fight back. She's got the arguments. She just doesn't have the platform to go after her. But as that relates to what we're talking about with the World Economic Forum, I I am trying to cover all my bases, and I've been researching this very carefully for months now. And you saw the stack of books because it's just amazing. You know, you just find yourself going down rabbit hole after rabbit hole, and then, you know, it forks into three more, you know, and you're trying to get to the bottom of the ideology that's driving it. And you're also trying to get to, you know, background on its founder, Klaus Schwab. And this is something that's interesting. I think it was last week I said, if anybody can give me a working definition of fascism that does not apply first and foremost to the left. I've issued that challenge. I've yet to have anyone take me up on it and
such a
provide
big surprise.
that. It's such a shock. So, you know, fascism is going to be a part of this, but Daily Wire has asked me to do a 3-part series on this.
Okay.
And we'll see if they end up publishing it, but they've asked me to do it, and I have no reason to think they wouldn't publish it, but it's going to, aspects of it are going to feel fairly academic, and I may need a larger word count than they actually want to give because we're talking about gargantuan ideas. And it's not the sort of thing you can deal with in your typical, you know, 600-800 word column. It's a big deal, but I'm planning to do this, at least for them, not on this show. I'm going to start with explaining, you know, really what Marxism and fascism are. And I'll give you a clue. The new Marxism is fascism. And I'll explain later what I mean by that.
Fascinating.
The new Marxism is fascism. I'm going to make the argument that fascism, you know, we've always been taught that fascism is an expression of the extreme right and Marxism is an expression of the extreme left. I'm going to argue no, they are both expressions of the left and that Marxism leads to fascism. And that's what we're seeing with the World Economic Forum. And this matters because you need to know what the ideology is that you're combating. So I'm going to start with that, explaining that. That'll lead into a segue discussing, you know, it sounds like I had oral surgery today, and
And you did not.
and I didn't. But Klaus Schwab will be part 2, and then part 3 is the World Economic Forum, who they are and what their goals are. But a fascinating aspect of this, Amie Beth, is I have never, and again, you know, I come from a somewhat academic background, and so I've done tons of research. I've written many articles. I've written multiple books. My graduate thesis was on an admiral in the United States Navy, and you know, going and researching all aspects of his life. I could find his military records. I could find, you know, records of battle. I could find his Naval Academy records. I could find the papers he wrote at the Naval War College because he'd written too, which was unusual, and they'd been declassified. So I could get access to all of this. Now, this was a figure who wasn't a major admiral in World War II. He was a minor admiral that most people haven't heard of. Klaus Schwab is a major global figure on whom I can find almost nothing. And I've had 2 researchers working on this, good ones, who keep coming back to me and saying, we can find almost nothing. Look at his Wikipedia page. And by the way, I hate Wikipedia. Wikipedia, when people cite it, I sneer because Wikipedia is not a source of truth. Doesn't mean it doesn't have elements of truth, but it's not a source of truth. And it's carefully guarded, often by atheist gatekeepers. And I would argue with you that Schwab's Wikipedia page has a number of very aggressive monitors whose job it is to knock off of there anything that they don't want on there, because his Wikipedia page is actually, you know, it's bland. It doesn't offer anything. And you're thinking, how can a figure that is as significant as this have almost nothing? You go to Conservapedia, which would have a different agenda.
Right.
It skips from, I think, 1968 to 2014. There's this huge gap in his life. So, yeah, and I'm not really a conspiracy theorist, but there's real conspiracy going on with this. So we're going to talk about Klaus Schwab, who he is. What are you going to say?
Well, it makes you think no. That makes my blood run cold.
Oh, I want to hear what you're going to say.
Is he a robot? Is he an automaton? Like, what is this? But no, seriously, I am very excited. What I really wanted to say was then get on it, because we need those articles, because people have questions. We have people that I really have a lot of respect for who still don't believe, and they still fail to see the magnitude and the weight of the Great Reset. They don't understand the World Economic Forum, or they think it is all poppycock and balderdash, and
It
get
isn't.
your tinfoil hat, because you're seen as a
I will demonstrate
conspiracy
that it
theorist.
absolutely isn't.
And it isn't, and I cannot wait. And so that's what I wanted to say, was I'm excited that you're going to take this on and talk about it. It's going to be very valuable.
The hard thing with it, Amie Beth, is that I've been ready to sit down at my computer several, and as you know, we've been dealing with this other mess, with a genuine immigrant that has kind of sidelined me from doing some of the stuff that I want to be doing. But every time I go to sit down to write this, and there has to be a place whenever you're doing research and writing. I love what Samuel Eliot Morison, a Pulitzer Prize winner of a previous generation, said. At some point, you must write.
Yes.
There's comfort in going back to the library. The problem is that this topic, as I say, is so gargantuan. The ideas are so gargantuan that you find yourself going, okay, there's a reference to who is this figure? Who is this figure? What's going on with this? So I'm hoping this weekend I can churn out the first article, but the way they do this at Daily Wire is they want the first article to drop, 2 days later, the next article to drop, and then 2 days after that, the next. So I need to really have conceived
all of them
at the same time, so that I don't, get behind. But anyway, listeners, viewers don't care about that, but that's part of the issue that's going on here. But we'll eventually get to this.
We will, and we'll also get to, last but not least, and you say his name, and everybody will tune in, is David Limbaugh.
I like David
very
Limbaugh.
Exciting.
David is a good guy. David is, if the name sounds familiar, he is the brother of Rush Limbaugh. David is a humble guy. He has a book out with his daughter, and he's helping her promote it. And he's done everything from Sean Hannity, variety of other places, and he'd like to come on our show. I'd love to have him in studio, and someday I think we'll get David in studio, but this will be a call-in interview with David. David is a character. David is a funny guy. I mentioned, we were at Mar-a-Lago and someone shouts to me. I mean, like across a crowd. And I'm going up to get like a mimosa or something for Lori. And I hear, "Is that Larry Taunton?" Shouting from across. And, I was hoping it was going to be Donald Trump. But sadly, it wasn't. It was better. It was David Limbaugh, and David has a very good sense of humor. He's in addition to being a writer, he's a lawyer, and we're going to get David on here to talk about his latest book, and we're also going to talk to him a little bit about his brother. And I say unfortunately, you're going to be suffering. I think.
Really suffering.
I think you're going to be suffering somewhere like maybe in the Bahamas or something like that when I have David on the show. But we'll get him back on another occasion.
Please give him my best. I love what he writes. I love when I've heard him in interviews, and I think this book will be fantastic.
Yeah.
So I hate that I'm missing out, but if I'll bake cookies if he'll come back, it will be great.
Well, you can bake them anyway. So.
I'll bake cookies, and I'll actually stop and bring donuts.
Yeah, that would be good.
We'll see who has them. So basically, for our wonderful audience, there's a lot to look forward to.
There is.
So you don't want to miss a thing.
Big ideas.
Make sure that you have subscribed so that you're getting the late breaking, all of the new stuff. And then like it, share it, spread the word, because we know that this is spreading the word.
Taunton.
I thought he was dead. But stay tuned. Don't miss out on anything. And we will see you next time.
Turn out the lights. The party's over. They say that all.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are grateful for the standing ovation, but there will be no encore for today's performance. Please exit the building in an orderly fashion. Thank you.
Honey, can we leave now?